Welcome to our evaluation. I'm Josh Lee, candidate number 8099.
I'm Drew Henderson, candidate number 8017.
In our evaluation we were given 7 vital questions to consider when constructing our evaluation, and these go as followed.
Question 1. In what ways does your media products use, develop or challenge forms or conventions of real media products? Typically, the horror genre is filled with gore, screaming and violence. Also, it's very typical to have the villain to be in a mask or some form of disguise to hide his identity, and this really further increases fear in the audience. In the horror genre there are many different types of horror, e.g. slasher, gore and psychological horror. We chose to do a psychological horror. A psychological horror is a horror which might not be explicit, might not be gory, might not be slasher or anything like that, but it will psychologically disturb the watcher into fear.
In our film we attempted to stray away from the norms of horrors, as we wanted to take a risk and make something unique that would make us stand out to the rest of the class. This is why we chose to do a handheld camera method, where we ditch the tripods and do it all by hand. We chose to represent our villain in a slightly new way by using a hoodie to conceal his identity, and this has been seen in new films such as Eden Lake, which you'll see in a minute, and F. These are the films we modelled our villain on. Another convention we stuck to was using a female character, although our original intentions was to have a non-blonde female actor, but due to the time of year most full drama students didn't have the time to help in our piece. This is why we resorted to using a GCSE drama student who happened to be blonde.
We also used a weapon, but not a stereotypical weapon, as most films will have a blade of some sort because it's easy to kill people with blades. But we went for the blunt weapon because it added a more gruesome feel to it without actually seeing a murder, because bludgeoning someone is much more gruesome than stabbing someone. Unfortunately the footage didn't really show the crowbar, we actually had 2 weapons. We had the crowbar, hammer, and unfortunately it didn't show either of these. It didn't really show why the actors ran away from the villain, but I suppose this kind of worked to our advantage because it added to the mystery. Maybe the actors were seeing something that we couldn't see. And this would go on as the film progresses. You know, for example, the people further on in the film were to progress and to look back at the footage, trying to work out what they were running from, and so are the audience at the same time.
We also used a religious aspect to the film, which so many films portray, such as Paranormal Activity, which is a recent one. They've made a second one which is quite recent as well, and these portray demons in it. We used the word sin, as it is one of the most ambiguous terms in the Bible, so it has multiple meanings and is interpreted in multiple ways. This also ties in with the poster made near the start of the production, as the singular tree can represent the tree of knowledge, and it links to the first sin, or perhaps the tree represents how the villain is isolated, as this singular tree is apart from the others, which could represent him as an outcast.
In a typical horror, music is a vital part of the piece, and this is because it builds so much tension and can really emphasise parts that the camera work can't really do. And although our piece doesn't really use an awful lot of music, we did use a small clip of 99999 by 9 Inch Nails. This was under Creative Commons, so we do have right to use it as long as we're not using it for profit gain. So this was actually limited to the title sequence, and this is because it was non-diegetic, and we wanted to keep the raw footage completely diegetic, and we didn't want to put any music on top of it. We wanted the tension to be created from the fact that there was no music, and also of the realism. But for the brief amount of time that it is in the title sequence, it really does set the genre and sets an atmosphere. You know, it really does create tension. And there's also a faint vibrating sound within the music, and this can relate to the end, as there's a phone call at the end, so it could be linked, and it really does work together really nicely.
When it comes to influences in our media piece, there are two main ones. One of these is Marble Hornets, which Drew found, and he's just going to explain what's it about.
It's a YouTube series on a mythical character called Slenderman, and it's a documentary kind of style thing where it's done with a handheld camera, which we used, and there's also something in the series which we used in our own, and this is the camera crackle. And every time this mythical character's near, the camera will crackle and split, and it kind of shows you that he's near and you should be afraid. And that's what we tried to do with ours. Another influence is Cloverfield, and Josh knows a lot about this.
Well, Cloverfield is one of my favourite films, and J.J. Abrams is a very good producer in this. But and this came out. This is a media magazine which has all the viral marketing of the film inside. But I'll talk about the film first. The film uses a handheld approach again, which we're obviously using, and it's just great how they use a leaked footage sort of thing. Like someone's got into the US government site and has actually found the footage of it. Because at one point, the movie begins with text saying "property of the army," which obviously makes it sound like it's leaked footage. But when going back to the viral marketing, when me and Drew looked into it, there's just a vast amount of things. There was YouTube clips of news broadcasts of everything in here. Companies which one of the characters works for is actually in this, and that relates to the monster before the incident actually happened in New York, which it just all links together. I mean, it's a very good way of marketing it, and it's probably cheap as well, wouldn't you say so?
Yeah, but still, I mean, it's got very high production values. This is because it's a Hollywood film, etc., and it was so brilliantly made, and that's because mainly of J.J. Abrams and his brilliance, and also the large amount of budget behind them. Whereas the Marble Hornets that I found was completely homemade. It was a few guys with their camera just exploiting a fear. And this particular one really gave us the inspiration, because if they could do it with their budget, we could do it, and we just went with it.
Okay, question 2 was, how does your media product represent particular social groups? Now, social groups are defined by a group of people roughly of the same age with same goals and influences, such as youths, skinheads, chavs, etc. And these are usually defined by media. And when searching into our social groups, we decided to go with the quite general social group of youths of the similar age. We represented this social group by using teenagers of a similar age to us, and who are in a relationship which they could possibly relate to.
Also, our villain is wearing a hoodie, which suggests a modern approach to a quite stereotypical horror villain, such as, Jason or Michael Myers. Also, being that he is wearing a hoodie, you could say that the villain also represents the age group and the social group. Because he's in trackies, he's wearing a hoodie, he's roughly of the same build of someone that age. Being that the media has kind of demonized this hoodie, it's kind of like a symbolic kind of gesture of British yobs and the Asbo culture that's in Britain at the moment, and we really hoped to capture that with our villain. Two horrors that we actually modelled our villain on were F and Eden Lake, and I think we did pretty well. Question 3. What kind of media institution might distribute your product, and why? Amateur filmmakers such as us, at this stage, we really aim for awareness rather than just for the profit. And filmmakers, Danny Boyle, he started out doing things like this. His gritty British breakthrough, This Is England, he made very little money from the actual film, but was such a gritty take on England that it really did get him a lot of attention, and it really did help him an awful lot.
This is why we wouldn't go pitching our products to an international company such as Fox or DreamWorks, as you need a good reputation and a few great films to back you up to work with such a big industry. Yeah.
And so this is why we chose a very small company in comparison to DreamWorks, Optimum Releasing. And the reason for this is because most of the films they distribute are amateur films made for people like us, you know, and it's a really good place to start. Other companies are like Optimum Releasing are like Film 4 and Warp Films, who helped produce This Is England.
We also looked at YouTube as a distributor, although not a lot of filmmakers would actually use it, but we believe because YouTube has such a vast audience, there's so many people on the site, that we would get the views in, and that would be good.
It's about recognition, especially on YouTube. It's all about who you know, and you build your way up on YouTube and you get a reputation. I think the most subscribed on YouTube is 3.5 million, and that's 3.5 million people will go into their computer every day and they will see a new video from this one person, and they will all watch it. So you think about how many views that is, and plus it's free hosting, and they get paid for it as well. If you get a partnership, you can get paid for it, and it really does help. YouTube is brilliant for, you know, video makers.
And even advertisement companies. If you have such a big viewed hit, advertisement companies will actually pay you to actually have their advertisement on the side of the clip. Also, going back to Marble Hornets, they've had so many hits there. They've got 40,000 for one episode and stuff, because there's so many people watching it and are interested in finding out what's happening on it. Yeah.
It's mostly by word of mouth. Another thing, just to quickly say, is because of the YouTube phenomena, the first person who hit 1 million subscribers was a person called Fred, and he actually got a movie deal because of his YouTube videos and how many people were watching it. And I thought that was a brilliant example of how YouTube can even make you break through into the media industry.
This is why we actually used a YouTube channel instead of it, because it's more accessible. Yeah. That's the reason why we used the YouTube channel. Yeah. Question 4 is, who will be the audience for your media products? Now we've researched into a lot of this. We've chosen different ideas what we would do, and we finally got it down to 18 to 25s, as this is the youth age group which we wanted to address. The reason why we chose this group was we thought that any older it wouldn't appeal to everyone, and obviously below it would be, because it's so psychologically disturbing, it's sort of a bit wrong to show younger ages. Yeah.
But unfortunately, this still happens, and we could say that this kind of widens our audience, because any kid who has any technological know-how can get on the internet, see any explicit material they want to, and which is illegal. You know, it's wrong. It's not, shouldn't be happening, but it does unintentionally increase our our audience, not our target audience.
Yeah, these can be like Sky and Film 4. They run, like, obviously Film 4 run all the programs and stuff like films and everything, and these can be horror films, and kids can easily just get a remote, switch it on straight away, and you know, it doesn't even stop you, so unless you use a filter. But yeah.